If you're struggling to pay your bills and it affects your credit score, the amount you're going to have to pay back skyrockets.
Banks made billions of dollars on overdraft fees.
America is literally built on a system where being poor is more expensive.
Oh, you want a barbecue sauce? 63 cents.
Oh, when do we stop being broke as fuck? Can anybody answer that?
Fine is just a tax for being poor.
Overnight, we will bail out a company. We will give them money.
Whoever convinced all American people that having the new car is the shit is a marketing genius.
Hello? Do you see this? 60% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck.
I'm gonna be like, well, I'm not gonna pay this bill because I don't want to do that.
You know what hell is? Hell is being black and poor. You know what hell is? Hell is being black and poor.
You're making us pay for grapes, apples, things that God gave us for free.
Poverty in the United States is a problem. If we can agree on that, then we can work on solutions.
Poverty charges interest.
America is designed to take advantage of lower class people. It is designed to keep lower income people as low income as possible.
If the punishment for something is a fine, then it's only a law for poor people.
Here is some things nobody talks about enough. When you don't have money, life can actually cost more. Debts, emergency, everyday expensive can turn into hard financial hardship. That's why a lot of people right now are facing the difficulty of life because everything costs more than what they can earn. And if you are new here, you should know something. The channel is getting a brand new branding. And I'm doing it all for us, for all of y'all, so the channel can look brand new and fresh. So if you are new here, do me a favor. Smash the subscribe button, like, share, comment, and let's check out this video.
I have a full-ass college degree, okay? I went to school. I have the student loans to prove it. I did all of these things. Do you know what my degree gets me that I paid thousands and thousands of dollars for? In the state of Georgia right now, thanks to the MAGA Republicans, it gets me minimum wage and barely covering my bills. Love that for me. Love that for Georgia.
You know what's really expensive in America? That's being broke. Last week I read that banks made billions of dollars on overdraft fees. And you know who has overdraft fees? People that already don't have money. And that happens with everything. Like if you're going to buy 1 bar of soap, it's going to be $2. If you buy 15 bars of soap, it's going to be $6. So you end up spending more on soap. For those same 15 bars of soap, you're going to spend $30 if you buy them one by one. But a lot of times people don't have the option of buying in bulk or doing things that will prevent them from spending a lot of money later. And it happens everywhere. If you don't replace your shocks and get an alignment on your car, now you're going to be buying tires all the time. If you don't change your oil, now you're going to get a new engine. What's the best example of this that you've seen? Like where being broke made you end up spending more money? Let me know.
In the United States, we require disabled people to be in poverty. Some people might think, well, if they can afford it, they should pay for it themselves, but that's exactly the problem. A lot of these programs are structured so that saving or earning too much will cause someone to lose the benefits that make work possible for them to begin with. This isn't promoting independence, it's penalizing it.
America is literally built on a system where being poor is more expensive. And nobody talks about how backwards it is when you're struggling, everything costs more. The bill you couldn't afford, well, now you owe more. Missed a payment because you're trying to juggle rent and groceries? Well, now your credit is down and you owe us more money. And into overdraft by $1, well, now you owe us $50. Like this system punishes us for already being behind. But everyone just says work harder and budget more. I have 3 jobs. How are we supposed to get ahead when you just fall a little bit behind? The system just pushes you back further and further. Everything is insane right now. Rent is at an all-time high. Groceries are so expensive. I just don't understand how we're supposed to get ahead. Don't get me wrong, budgeting does help, and I literally have to use mine to know where any of my money is. Does it make up for the fact that the system is designed to fail us? We shouldn't need to have 3 different jobs just to get by. If you're struggling right now, you are not alone.
Oh, you want other sauce outside of ketchup? Yeah, it's gonna be 15 cents. Oh, you want a barbecue sauce? 63 cents. Oh, you want sweet heat? Oh yeah, any extra sauce? Although we didn't provide you any sauce, any extra sauce, 73 cents. When are we going to get back to being a proper country? I'm dumbfounded. Every time. Hey, can I have one barbecue sauce? Yeah, that's going to be 63 cents. And then they close the window. Why you acting like I'm broke? I was finna pay it. I really wanted my barbecue sauce.
So, when do we stop being broke as fuck? Can anybody answer that? Because it seems like the longer we go, the worse it gets. This isn't even a political thing. It doesn't matter which side of the aisle you sit on. It's only been getting worse every year for, I don't know, the last 4 or 5 decades. If you look at other nations, it almost seems like as the time goes, their nation gets better, not just with technology, but with society and also their economy. And yet somehow we have cameras that can zoom in on your neighbor doing weird shit in their yard, and our economy still sucks ass. Out here feeling like you spent your life savings gambling when all you did is actually buy groceries. And I know it's the season of them kicking the can down the road like they do, I don't know, every 20 years or so. But for whatever reason, this shit is taking too long. It used to be that you could go to work all day and at least have just the basic shit. You could come home and at least eat a good meal. Now, you work your ass off and actually work overtime and you're still eating ramen noodles. But don't worry, everyone. We're gonna make sure we have plenty of entertainment for you because it's not like you can actually leave your house to go do anything.
Any fine is just a tax for being poor. A rich person wouldn't even notice if they had to pay $200 for a speeding ticket or $50 for a parking ticket. But a poor person might have to skip groceries for the week. A poor person might not be able to make their rent for the month. When Apple got hit with a class action lawsuit because Siri was accidentally eavesdropping and recording private conversations, and then accidentally sharing these private conversations with businesses, mysteriously, of course, they were ordered to pay a fine of $95 million. Apple is worth trillions of dollars. That's not a punishment. That's just a reminder of how much they can get away with. It's just a reminder of how this country loves to disproportionately punish people for being poor rather than helping them.
If you give taxes to rich people, that's called capitalism. If you give taxes to poor people, that's called socialism, is a post I made recently. And the comments are going exactly how I thought they were going to go. So many people are missing the point. Overnight, we will bail out a company. We will give them money. The only reason Tesla ever became profitable is because government contracts and government subsidiaries. That is the only way they ever made a profit. We will give $500 billion overseas, but the second Flint, Michigan needs water or someone in our community needs it, it's going to take a year. And it costs Flint, Michigan, $170 million was the bill, and it took 11 months compared to sending money overseas or sending money to a company like Boeing or all these GM, and it will take a day.
I need to say this. Whoever convinced all American people that having the new car is the shit is a marketing genius. Because a new car is nice, but an extra $700 a month in your pocket to, for example, buy a nice meal or just in 2 months buy a flight to Italy, that is definitely better. I believe that in this country priorities are so fucked up. While you have been convinced that you're luxurious in your shit Kia Sorrento, 2021 Kia Sorrento, for those beautiful $700 a month, I can spend 3 months in Italy, relaxing, for those extra $8,400 a year. I might be driving the old car, but when it comes to, for example, the biggest insecurity of American people, which is looking broke, I believe that it looks much less broke to be 3 months in Italy and posting from the beach than driving a new entry-level car for $700 a month. To sip wine and a beautiful restaurant-made carbonara pasta than to sit on those brand new fake leather seats. To go to the opera with $50 instead of listening to music to your new Beats Kia sound system. I believe that in terms of looking broke, if looking broke is really the insecurity of this country, the real peasant here is the Kia owner, not the guy who drives the shit car but spends 3 months in Italy. Just wanted to give you a different perspective on life. Ciao.
Good morning. Good morning. Just want to show y'all a friendly reminder. All these Americans that talk about China, talk about Thailand, talk about all these countries, how America is the best country. Hello? Do you see this? 60% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. 80% carry some kind of debt. 45%, read, 45% have less than $500 in their savings. 40 to 46% cannot handle a $400 emergency with cash. Why are y'all still defending America? Look at the numbers. Look at the data. This is what happens when you follow the system. You mean to tell me you're going to be happy like this? Living your life paycheck to paycheck? You're working every day, but you can't save $500? If there's an emergency, you can't spend $400 in cash? You don't have money. We're poor. America is poor. America is a poor country. Look, just continue to read this over and over again and just think about this. How can you get ahead if you have to live your life like this? Already in debt, you live paycheck to paycheck, you're getting hit with interest rates, you can't save money, and if there's an emergency, you can't do anything. You're gonna panic. And you're working all the time. You don't have free time, you can't do anything. But what you gonna wait for? You're gonna wait till you 60, 65 to get your pension, get your retirement money? What kind of life is that? I get it. Some people want to live that way, but if you're young and you're trying to experience and do things, don't fall for this stuff. It's nonsense, bro. Like, I don't understand it. Like, I feel like this is the fake world. Like, this is fake. I don't think this is real. Like, when I see this, I'm like, how are people living like this? You got to escape this, because I'm telling you, if you do what they tell you to do, you're going to be in this. Somehow, some way, you're going to have debt. You're going to end up living paycheck to paycheck because you're going to have too many expenses.
Guys, I gotta make more money. I'm like literally laying on the floor. I gotta make more money. I'm getting to a point in my life where like it's just not funny anymore. I don't want to pregame in my apartment. I don't want to sneak in tequila shots in my purse and like a cute little tampon that I bought from Amazon, and then I'm taking shots in the bathroom. I don't want to talk to men. I really don't. And then they buy us drinks, and then I'm like, great, cool. I don't really gotta do that. You know, I don't want to be like, well, I'm going on this trip, so I'm not going to spend this or that. It's like, I don't want to do that. I don't be like, well, I'm not going to pay this bill because I don't want to do that. I need to make more money. How do I make more money? Do I go back to school? Do I go get I have my degree. Should I go get a master's? Should I become a lawyer? Did I miss my window? Fuck, I need more money. I can't keep living like this. I'm eating pasta.
You know what hell is? Hell is being black and poor. It's one thing to be black in America. That's tough enough. And you can be poor in America, no matter what color you are. Being poor in America in a capitalist society, oh, that's rough. But to be black and poor in America, oh, that's hell. That's hell. And guess what? We have mastered making it through hell and sometimes turning it into heaven. Can I get an amen? Amen.
Why does not America look like Dubai and Germany? And why doesn't America look like Russia and Persia? And where the is the money go? There should be grapes, turnips, vegetables, everything on the streets every day for the homeless to eat. You're making us pay for water, you son of a... You're making us pay for grapes, apples, things that God gave us for free? Ha ha, Rabosha. You will burn in hell when I'm through with you. You will not be allowed in my Father's house at all.
10% of the United States lives in poverty. We first have to acknowledge that that is a problem worth solving, because a lot of people immediately want to jump into criticizing the solutions. They'll say, but that's not possible. But raising wages will increase inflation. But. All these excuses. But first, I need to understand that you're sitting here with me understanding that poverty in the United States is a problem. If we can agree on that, then we can work on solutions. Then we can find politicians who are advocating or who have ideas to solve the problems that we have identified. But it feels very disingenuous when you immediately criticize any effort to find solutions before you've even agreed that the problem exists. Because I actually think that a lot of you don't think the problem really exists. You think there should be a lower class in society. You think people should struggle. You think that is a factor of the American society. But I don't think that needs to be the case. And so if you actually want to have a real debate, a real conversation about problem solving, at least acknowledge that there's a problem, or say there isn't. Because otherwise you're just kind of wasting everyone's time.
Here's the dark truth about being poor. Poverty charges interest. Can't afford to get that cavity looked at? Next day you're paying for a root canal. Can't afford a good lawyer? You may end up in prison, trapped in a system you can't fight. Can't afford to get that lung checked out? Next day you're paying for stage 3 cancer. can't afford to pay your bills on time, you end up with bad credit, paying triple the interest every time you borrow. You see, growing up in ends, the hood, the ghetto, or whatever you want to call it, you see this commonly where less fortunate people pay more for things because they are less fortunate. And even if they somehow manage to make it out, make a bit of money, they hold on to those traumas and pass it along generations. The truth is, wealth buys you time, options, and safety. And then poverty steals all three. And then charges you interest for the rest of your life.
It's actually really expensive to be poor in America because America is designed to take advantage of lower class people. It is designed to keep lower income people as low income as possible. They don't want a ton of vertical movement up the wealth meter because they don't want people that are lower class to take over the wealthier class spots because they need the lower class to help be exploited and help fund the wealthier class. So for the wealth class to survive, they need people to stay down. So it is actually more expensive to be poor in a lot of situations. Like, for instance, boots. Perfect example. I'm sure everyone has heard the boots example. Is a good pair of working boots expensive? Very expensive. It could be like $200-$300 for a really good, well-made pair of boots. But a cheap pair of work boots from Walmart is like $50 to $60. If you are paycheck to paycheck, what do you think you're going to do? You're going to pay for the cheaper boots that are going to last you maybe 6 months. And then you're going to be back and you're going to have to buy a new pair of boots. And then you're going to maybe have those last another 6 months, but you're not going to be able to pay $200-$300 every 6 months. So each time the new boots come up, you're never going to be able to afford expensive new boots. You're only ever going to be able to afford the cheap ass boots that are going to keep breaking. But if you just bought the $200 boots at the first time, those could last a decade and you would have never had to replace them. And it would have been a lot cheaper than paying for $50 boots every year or every other year for 10 years. Same with like interest rates. People that can afford to just buy a car don't have to worry about what interest rates are, and they don't have to worry about how expensive it would be to borrow the money. And people that can just afford to go and buy a house, they don't have to worry about how much a mortgage would cost or what the rates of a mortgage are because they can afford to just buy things flat out. They don't have to pay the fee to borrow the money. Another prime example is how some social benefits are set up to run. And for instance, a lot of people that are receiving benefits and that are lower income, they know that they can't go out and get another job. They can't get better work. They can't get a higher paying job unless it's significantly higher paying. Because if it's just a little bit higher paying, it's going to be enough to take away all their benefits, but not enough to pay for the benefits. So they'd actually have less money in the long run. So stuff like that keeps people from being motivated for actually finding a better job and having any class mobility because they can't afford to lose their benefits short term. Things like this keep people poor long term, and this is very much by design. People cannot afford to be poor. That's the problem.
If the punishment for something is a fine, then it's only a law for poor people. It doesn't apply to the rich. They just pay the fine. It does not affect their lives at all. It doesn't even deter them. I actually know this firsthand, and without giving away specific information, I'll tell you, I have a family member who gets speeding tickets all the time. This person is very wealthy and doesn't care. Pays his way out every time. It doesn't matter. If I get a $200 speeding ticket, that's a hit. I'm going to try to avoid doing that. I have to care about that because if I do that enough, it'll affect my life. Not him. So it does not apply to the rich. And you can talk about, oh, well, you get a certain number of points and eventually it'll be reckless driving and eventually, not if you have enough money. I promise you, if you have enough money, you can get out of all of that. If the punishment is a fine, again, it only applies to poor people.
The U.S. punishes poor people. If you're not financially doing well or have enough in your savings account, or if you're unable to put enough on a down payment, your interest rate skyrockets. If you're struggling to pay your bills and it affects your credit score, the amount you're going to have to pay back skyrockets. If you go negative into your account by even just a few cents, if it's allowed to sit there overnight, you're going to get a fee of $30-something added per day. You're in the hole. Things this country does to people that are obviously struggling, the way they these policies keep them stuck, to keep them paying the scam that student loans have become. They can sell their debt to a company that'll tweak the interest and it'll compound, end up paying off their loan 1, 2, 3 times over, still pay the full amount they originally got it for. This place does everything it possibly can to keep its citizens struggling. Like every little thing, make it difficult to get on food stamps, make it difficult to get on welfare, unemployment, disability. They make things so difficult. As soon as you get a job, it gives you $3 extra an hour. You're considered too rich for food stamps now, even though you're still technically below the poverty line. This place is so corrupt, it makes me sick.
Here's the harsh truth about America's debt problem. Politicians keep promising the debt they're taking on will help the lower class, but it just makes the rich richer and the poor poorer. Watch this. Our government is running a $2 trillion deficit, like drunken sailors. That money is trickling down to companies, boosting corporate earnings, causing stocks to rip the past 5 years. The rich that own stocks have seen their wealth explode. On the other hand, our debt is piling up, fueling inflation, and that family living paycheck to paycheck can just barely scrape by as the price of groceries continues to get away from them. But the problem will get worse. Because of our ridiculous debt, our government has to pay higher interest rates to attract investors to buy our debt. That means the people that own the bonds make more money, while people living paycheck to paycheck get hurt by even more inflation. If it seems like a recipe to make the rich richer and the poor poorer, it is. This isn't a Democrat or Republican problem. The Democrats promise more spending. The Republicans promise lower taxes. Both have the same result: more debt, which widens the inequality gap. At some point, we just must stop spending.
So we all know that the penalty for being poor in this country is for everything to be more expensive. 2 years ago, I needed a car, both to get to work and to live in, which I've been doing for the last 18 months. And at the last minute, at my income level, that meant that my only option was a car that cost me nearly $1,000 a month to keep between payments and insurance. I don't need to tell you that's not sustainable, especially when you're like me and too mentally ill to hold down any one particular job for an extended period of time. Now, say what you will about my mental state, okay? But there are plenty of people who are in my exact position who don't end up completely discarded by society because they have things I've never had, like luck, resources, and opportunity. So many people have friends with resources or a supportive family network. They find a spouse, they inherit a house. Ooh, bars. They get insurance money. Ain't none of that shit coming to me. So instead, I am asking all of my followers to send me $1. Because now I have to let them repossess this car. I have to. I have no other choice, okay? The loan on this car was $16,000, and in 2 years, I've gotten that bitch down to 15 and a fucking half. Kelly Blue Book value? $8,000 for this car. I am stuck. There's no way in hell I am gonna be able to pay this thing off. And I already wasn't making enough money, so my insurance lapsed. So my license was suspended again. And what the fuck good is there in going to work if I get arrested on the way? So I gotta let go of the car. Do I know where I'm gonna live? No. Do I know where I'm gonna work? No. Do I know how I'm gonna get there? No. Do I have all my things in a storage unit right now? Yes. Do I have anything else planned or understood? Absolutely not. The government already wants $2,000 from me from the last time I got caught driving without a fucking license. And I'm supposed to go to court tomorrow and tell them what exactly. Put me on a payment plan for the income that I'm gonna have as I continue to drive without a license so I can get to work? No, ma'am, Your Honor, you can't draw blood from a fucking stone. You're never gonna get that fucking money. I'm never gonna get that money. I'm asking all of my followers to send me $1. I'm not asking for money, though. What I'm asking for is opportunity. I'm hoping to find a moped for less than $1,000, which is all I can really hope for. The rest of this is a fucking dream. Again, luck. Imagine me having any. Totally different timeline. At $2,000, I could definitely get a moped and maybe even find some temporary shelter. At $4,000, I could do that and fix my license. At 10, maybe I could fix my license and find a car to live in from a private seller. Maybe like a Ford E-Series or something like that. If I got even half of what I'm asking for, I'd be saved from the situation entirely. And if I got it all, I'd never have to ask for money again. At least not without providing a service.
The United States criminal legal system punishes people for being poor. And this happens in more ways than you might think. Here are just 3 ways the United States criminalizes people experiencing poverty. Here's the first. Almost every state has at least one law that bans activities that people experiencing homelessness engage in to survive. This threatens their health, their well-being, and ultimately their lives. Number 2, money bail creates a two-tiered system. Those with financial means can pay to get out of jail, while people with lower incomes or experiencing poverty suffer behind bars. Number 3, and let's just call it out. Fines and fees are monetary punishment. Once cases are resolved, jurisdictions can impose fines and fees on people for nearly every type of offense, including traffic violations and minor infractions. Adding that all up, that can add up to hundreds or even thousands of dollars. If people can't afford to pay, they will almost certainly face more fines, more fees, jail time, and a host of other consequences. That sounds a bit counterproductive and ineffective, don't you think? It's time we stop punishing people for experiencing poverty. Instead, we should invest in community-driven solutions that meet people's needs and help them thrive. Bottom line is, punishing poverty is wrong.
You know, they just made homelessness illegal in America. Can you imagine that? It's illegal to be homeless, but not illegal to make you homeless. Criminalizing being poor when you are made poor by a criminal system. You're not allowed to not have enough money to pay for your own survival, but they're allowed to make your survival too expensive to pay for. And if you have any blotch on your credit record, why, it may as well be a criminal record. You can't rent, you can't get a job, you can't secure housing, you can't get a car, anything. And they talk about China's social credit system. Well, you invented it. They've got your social security number around your neck like an iron collar. Everybody in that country has debt collectors chasing after them like bloodhounds after an escaped convict. Well, you know, there's something called the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, and that's supposed to protect you. But they don't want anyone to know about it. They want you to think that your only recourse is to go to the government for help, when it's that same government that puts you in debt, keeps you in debt, and is itself in debt. The same government that is bought and paid for by the very predatory, parasitic companies that make life too expensive in America, that make it impossible to get an education without drowning in debt for the rest of your life. The same government and the same courts that have taken all the rights and protections away from you and given them to corporations and given them to the super rich. They don't want you to even know about your rights under international law.
You ever notice how the poorest neighborhoods, they always have the most towers, the most sirens, the most chaos? That is not by accident. They stack cell towers, power lines, and hidden emitters in those communications on purpose. Frequency manipulation makes people anxious, agitated, and quick to fight. This is MK Ultra rebranded. Back then it was labs and experiments. Now it's in your music, it's in your environment, and even the airwaves around your block. Just think about it. Constant sirens, helicopters, gunshots. That's not just noise, that's programming. Trauma loops that rewire the subconscious. And why do you think they flood the poor neighborhoods with violent music? Because the beats hit your survivor center. Lust, anger, rage, keeping you trapped in fight or flight. Every shooting, every fight, every broken life, it feeds the machine. Police funding goes up. Private prisons, they stay full. More cameras, more control. I will tell you, those neighborhoods hold bloodlines with powerful ancestral memory. They fracture that power before you can wake up. This isn't a coincidence, it's design. So the real question is, do you feel like you're living free? Or are you living inside their program? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because the truth can't stay buried.
Being poor sucks. Let's talk about this for a second. So when you break it down, can an American afford a $500 emergency? 6 out of 10 say no. Just flat out say no. They don't know what they would do. 2 out of 10 say they would put it on a credit card. 1 out of 10 says they would turn to a family member. And 1 out of 10 says they actually have the $500 to cover the emergency. So 1 in 10 Americans can actually afford a $500 emergency, and the rest of us are just kind of fucked. How How is there so much wealth in this country and it's not ever divided the way it should be? It's sickening.
I've been listening to the audiobook Poverty by America, and I 150% recommend that you go listen to that or read it, because it is an excellent book. It actually details the fact that the people who get the most benefit from government welfare programs are actually middle class and rich people. It talks about the fact that through things like the mortgage interest deduction that you get for your mortgage, the benefits for college savings programs, all of those things end up meaning more welfare money goes to middle class and wealthy people than it does to people who live in poverty. And that people who live in poverty are significantly less likely, by like 60%, to take advantage of the programs that are available to them, because it's seen as something that they haven't earned. Whereas if you have a mortgage and you take the interest deduction, that is something you've earned. You've paid for it. And to me, that is absolutely fascinating. The narrative that exists in our country that the people who take things like welfare or SNAP are lazy is so twisted and wrong. As somebody who has struggled on multiple occasions in my life to be able to pay my bills and buy food, it is really, really sad to me that I am able to access more help now as somebody who makes, more than $100,000 a year than people who are in my shoes, 5 years ago. And that to me is heartbreaking.
When people talk about poverty in America, they usually point at wages, rent, or healthcare. But there's another trap that hides in plain sight: dollar stores. They're marketed as help, as convenience and affordability, but for millions of working class Americans, dollar stores don't reduce the cost of living, they quietly increase it. Dollar stores explode in places where people already have the least access to resources: rural towns, low-income neighborhoods, and communities that have an at-risk grocery store. And once they arrive, they tend to push everything else out. According to a report from Tufts University, dollar stores are now one of the fastest growing food retailers in the entire country, especially in rural and low-income communities where they've doubled their share of the food retail market over the last decade. A dollar store doesn't need fresh food distributors. It doesn't need trained staff. It doesn't need much square footage, and it certainly doesn't pay well. That lets them move into places where real grocery stores struggle. And once it's there, nothing replaces what was lost. Now let's talk about prices, because this is where the scam really shows up. Dollar stores don't sell cheaper food. They sell smaller food. You're paying more per ounce and per serving almost every time. But when you're broke, you don't buy price per unit. You buy what you can afford right now. And that's the poverty penalty in action. The amount of food Americans buy at dollar stores has almost doubled, rising from 3.4% of all household food purchases in 2008 to 6.5% in 2020, with the biggest jumps among low-income and rural households. You might save 50 cents at the register, but over a month or a year, you're paying significantly more for the same products with worse nutrition and less value. Dollar stores carry limited fresh food and heavily processed items with long shelf lives, and this is the entire business model. The result isn't just higher grocery costs, it's worse health outcomes, higher medical bills, and long-term expenses that don't show up on your receipt. Dollar stores don't just replace grocery stores, they replace jobs. A full grocery store employs dozens of workers across all departments. A dollar store often runs 1 or 2 people per shift, paid low wages with unpredictable hours. So when a dollar store moves in, the community doesn't just lose food access, it loses economic stability. In neighborhoods with only one remaining grocery store, the arrival of a dollar store is associated with a decline in overall food access, effectively expanding food deserts. Some towns now have multiple dollar stores and 0 grocery stores. That means longer drives for real food. Dollar stores thrive on scarcity. They don't fix food deserts, they profit from them. And therein lies the cost of being poor. As the working class, we have to quit thinking affordability is about the price on the shelf. In reality, it's about the cost over a lifetime. I'm Lee Calvin with Rough Cut Media Network. Like, share, and subscribe if you choose to do so. More boots, less suits. We'll see you next time.
If I could say anything that people would listen to, it would be that many things in life and in society are designed so that you will forget that you will pass away one day. And I would also say that poverty has been set up as a cycle to make sure that wealthy people have a stream of income and to benefit the few over the many. Something that I've been often thinking about is how cycles of poverty will literally kill people faster. And this is not speculation, it is fact. Psychologists and doctors are starting to find out through research more and more that stress can literally kill. It can deteriorate your body, it can cause you to have autoimmune diseases and disorders, it can send your organs into failure, you can lose senses, you can lose memory, you can lose capacity of your brain. And I think we're starting to see much more focused cause and effect, not just because we're just starting to study this and talk about this a lot more, and it's a bit newer in science. Though it's been speculated about, it's taken special interest to many people in psychology that I'm aware of. It's really interesting to see that even without the science, you can literally watch this happen in real life. I was talking to a friend about how geography is a lottery and it's often your death ticket. And let me explain that. I grew up in the desert, and there was quite literally nothing to do. This is back in the early 2000s when the infrastructure wasn't as vast or wide as it is today. The only things you really had to do was go to your family's house, if you could, go to the mall, go to school, and go home. Even the city had very few programs, and one of the only ones that were open were swimming, and that's what I did. And I remember at a very young age looking around and realizing that the adults around me were just living in the same cycles day in and day out and would most likely never expand. And it becomes quite depressing because when you look at modern society today, nothing has changed. If anything, it's gotten harder. I was discussing this with a total stranger at the grocery store in a line today. We were talking about how gas has gotten higher because of what's going on in Iran and what the US has done trying to destabilize so many countries and what is happening now with the Strait of Hormuz. And we were talking about the fact that not just gas is going to go up, but groceries and the supply chain is going up. A video that I saw in Australia where stores had become empty because of supply chain issues. And I realized that this just makes things worse for people modern day, as if that wasn't a startling realization that I've had every day since I was a child. If you compare life to back in the day compared to now, even if it's just the early 2000s, it's astronomically different and harder. Finances have skyrocketed, and this is where we get to the point of this video. Poverty is meant to kill. Poverty is meant to enslave, and poverty is manufactured with reason. So I was talking to friends of mine about how I grew up in the desert, right? And this conversation in the grocery store had me thinking about an old conversation I had about the South. You know, poverty historically has never been as bad as it is on such a wide scale. And the reason because of that would be, I would say, the Industrial Revolution and technological advances. The fact that we have such a global world. This is not a world in a day and age where you can just go home and forget that anything is happening. You have billions of people with the access of the world at their fingertips through their phones. Poverty has shifted. I remember reading the studies and being told by history professors, even the Middle Ages peasant or serf or indentured servant would have more time off than we do today. Now, while this culturally shifts and validity can be very dependent on certain factors, even when you look back to ancient Rome, you can see historically that certain things do hold up. If you were to tell an ancient Roman what you do and how your grind culture is today, working multiple jobs, working 50 to 60 hours, 70 to 80 hours a week, they would not congratulate you. They would look at you in terror and disgust. Because the ideal setup was to do as minimal as possible, to have impact, and to do as you please. What the fuck does this have to do with anything? This is a historical precedence of what we're seeing today. Look at the American South. This is the best example that I have in my personal historical socioeconomic context, and through anthropology, we can glean this from American infrastructure to the way that America is set up on industry and the false history that it's made for itself, not just through anthropology or even just taking a look at the skeletons between the closet, but sociologically speaking. People in the South are born, they're raised, they usually end up in small towns where there is little to no mobility. You end up working at the same job, and maybe you'll have kids. A lot of people are religious, and then they work and maybe retire for, now it's dwindling. It used to be like 20 years, now it's like maybe 10, 15 years, and you pass away. And that is the life of people who are impoverished. And the issue is, it's not just the American South, it's all over the world. People who struggle with poverty and people who struggle are stuck in systems and traps, not just financially, but this affects your ability to live and your quality to live, as well as something I never see mentioned, your mental health. Poverty has been proven to affect your mindset. The way you treat yourself, the way you treat your kids, the way you treat your family and friends, the things that you let slide because other people around you are letting that slide because you are who you hang out with. For example, people make jokes about this, which I'm not sure why, but I've seen a lot of jokes on my For You page about Southern cigarette moms and about how some of them can be very abusive. And some of these actions are widely accepted in the South because it's just the way the town is. Or people will see blatant abuse and say, well, she's just harsh, it's nothing bad. The point is, certain behaviors and activities will take prevalence, and that will control people's lives and abilities to live. And even regardless of that, the system is set up against impoverished people to begin with. And now more than ever, any sort of chances that you have to climbing any sort of ladder to freedom are getting lower and lower. It's dwindling almost to the point of no return. And I try not to think about it often, but I thought it might as well just vocalize my thoughts because something that I found really interesting is that I don't really tend to see people talking about this. I think I've seen maybe one other person try to poke at that. But the thing is, if you're born in a small town, there are so many people who are born in places like, little counties in Texas or cities in Texas, towns, and I mean towns, places like Arizona, to pick anywhere that's like a rural area where they are born there, they work there, and they pass away there, and that is life. There is no possibility for mobility. And I think the most important thing that makes this so startling is that people originally had started flocking to other states because there was this promise of, oh, well, you'll be able to afford a house or you'll be able to afford different amenities. But something that is interesting is that it is very clearly a trap, and now more than ever, it's becoming worse and worse. I know people who live in the South who are getting paid $10 an hour for a state wage, or minimum wage, if you would say, and their rent is $1,500 an hour, and even if they pay, in certain places you're subject to be evicted whenever the landlord wants. Not all states are created equally. And the reason why I think this is such an important conversation is because it's not like this is just happening in America, it happens globally. I think that a lot of people will settle for less and will settle for these American lies or American dreams because they have the bare minimal amenities. Americans are taught, especially nationalistic Americans, or patriotism, whatever cannon fodder word you want to use, they're taught that they must be grateful for their country because they have it better than anyone else, which has proven to be wrong multiple times. Non-Americans or immigrants who come here for a better life because they buy into the American dream are just grateful to have a lot of amenities that may not be offered in their own countries. Things like running water, plumbing, electricity, infrastructure, opportunities, and these things are dwindling, at least when it comes to opportunity. And I really wish that people thought about this more and discussed this more. I know I didn't do a lot of hook, line, and sinkers, but I think that this is something that's definitely worth thinking about because when you look under the hood, you'll start to see that this is just the tip of the iceberg. All I can say is you are who you're around, so be careful. And let's make it clear, most people do not have a choice. It can be almost impossible to escape these cycles. And that is by design by the people who profit off of them.